Oh my gosh, what a week it's been. I've just got back from a 4-day residential photography workshop on the Murray Coast, and we had the most insane conditions, and this is why this week's video is a little bit late, which is why I'm telling you the story. So usually when I do a workshop, we'd have a few hours potentially in the evening, after dinner and before bed to do some critique, some computer work, or just relax and unwind after a long day out shooting. But this year, or this workshop, things were different because 2 out of the 3 nights the Northern Lights came out, and we were very, very fortunate for this and spent both the evenings out photographing the lights, and especially the second night. It was the most amazing display I have seen in ages, and to be able to share that with a group of clients, it just was such welcoming experience. I was overjoyed. My clients would vouch for this, but I was literally running around the beach elated with joy that this was happening and that I was able to share it with them. So yeah, they've seen a few shots on the screen just now of what we were capturing, but it was just amazing. So that's why this week's video is late, because of these aurora displays and the workshop and everything, and it was just an amazing weekend. And if the Northern Lights and the beautiful weather wasn't good enough, the famous Scottish stunt rider Danny McCaskill turned up right at our last location as well, which was a real treat. He was obviously there, you know, scouting out for a future video, it looked like, and you just have him turn up and watch him doing his recce and stuff. It was amazing. So an unforgettable weekend. And before we get on to the topic of this video, I just wanted to remind you all very quickly about some of the events I have coming up this year, should you wish to come and join in on them. So in November I'm hosting my next planned residential workshop on the Murray Coast. It's already half full, but there's still a few spaces left. So if you're interested in coming to the Murray Coast and potentially photographing the Northern Lights, although it's definitely not guaranteed, but I'll keep everything crossed for you, potentially do that, but also come and see many of the locations that you see regularly on my YouTube channel. Like I say, there's a few spaces left and you can book your slot in the description below. If photography workshops don't interest you, and you want to do broader creative things, I've teamed up with a few friends to do my Mindful Creative Retreat, which is happening, should I say, this May. There's 2 spaces left. If you want to come to the Murray Coast and live in a wigwam for the week, meet like-minded people, do photography workshops, mini workshops, creative writing workshops, go on a bike ride along the coast, do some yoga and some visualization techniques, and just completely immerse yourself in nature with a group of like-minded people, then that may be of interest to you. And again, you can book your place in the description below. And lastly, if you're local to me or live nearby in Scotland, I'm going to be doing a few smaller day workshops this year at a place called Green Brae Steading in Hopeman, and the first of which is happening on the 30th of April. And yeah, it's exciting. It's going to be about mindful photography, and we'll spend half of the day in Green Brae itself doing presentations and teaching, and the other half out on the beach, which is a very short walk from the steading, immersing ourselves in nature and practically doing photography. So if that interests you, everything in the description box below. But now let's get on to today's video. And today is all about why I return to locations time and time again. And to do this, I'm going to take you back to a few weeks ago when I returned to the same location that you've seen in my last 2 videos, and photographing the same subject that I photographed 2 videos ago, but in completely different conditions. And those conditions blew my mind. The conditions today are amazing. I've come back to the same spot that I did photography at 2 videos ago. It's actually only the next day in real life, but as you can see, the conditions today are way better than yesterday. The colour, the light, the beauty here is just fantastic, and the sea is even more ferocious, and those waves have got a stunning blue tone to them. So because it's so much more ferocious, because the colour is so much more better, today I've already taken, over the last 10 minutes, some photographs that way excel what I shot last time, and now I'm going to share them with you because this is incredible. Just look at the blue sky amongst the mist and the foamy waves surging to shore. Just beautiful. Combining my polarizer with a medium edge graduated filter allowed me to get half-second exposures and help the sky to stand out in the final images. Honestly, that day I was in awe. The mist and how it was moving over the sea, the beautiful blue sky that was appearing around it, and those surging waves that were coming in around the cross there. It made for some amazing photographic opportunities. I was just in awe by what was going on, really. It was just something that, it's one of these shoots that you just think, this is why I come back to locations time and time again. Because if we rewind to 2 videos ago, where I was out and about doing the same shots at the same location, although I was reasonably happy with these images, the light wasn't that great, and I converted a few of them to black and white, and to be fair, they were probably my favourite images. But on the whole, I just thought it was quite a flat, reasonably dull, reasonably boring shoot. And like I said, despite I got some images that I was happy with, I wasn't overjoyed with them. But on this morning I was, and it's because every element came together. Coming there a day later, and the weather was completely different, but the tide was still reasonably at the same level, so you still had the water around it. I was still using the same filters, I was playing around with similar compositions, and it was what made those images was the change in weather. So I love going back to the same locations because every time I go there, it's completely different. And although you're photographing the same subjects, what makes outdoor photography is the weather, the mood, and the light. And like I say, every time you go somewhere, that's going to be slightly different. So, I've photographed in Findhorn hundreds of times since I began photography. It's one of my favourite places to do photography, and you've seen it many times on this channel, but I return time and time again because every time I go there I connect differently to that location. And in my last video, which was all about getting low to the ground with a tripod, that was shot in Findhorn as well. I just stayed away from the groin and the beach huts, and I went further down the beach to the wooden steps, and the tide was obviously out, which gave a completely different perspective to the groin videos with the cross, and I was able to get those low down shots, which just blew my mind. And it just shows that going back to locations in different weathers and different conditions, and if you're at the coast at high tide and then low tide, and even in between tides as well, it can result in completely different images. And the more you go back to locations, the more you become aware of what those locations have to offer, and you start opening your mind up to new subject matter, like I did in the last video. But then you always have in the back of your mind that dream of getting that shot of a specific subject as you dream and visualise it in your mind. And those crosses there in that video, or these last few videos, has been something that I've shot many times over the years, but I've never been 100% happy with the images that I've got. But the images you saw in this video, when I returned the next day, are, I would say, my favourite shots I've got of that to date. there's still more I'd like to do. I'd still like to get it with beautiful sunrise or sunset light behind it and get that shot that I've always envisaged. But I'm getting one step closer to it by returning time and time again, and the images are becoming much better as a result. So I just want you to think about that, because I think the last few years for us all have been challenging, and for and one thing I've found when I've been working with clients, whether it's through workshops or mentoring, is some people, especially people who are used to travelling the world and doing travel photography, have found the last few years so difficult. And a lot of photographers I find have the mindset that unless they're travelling and going on big adventures, that they can't do photography. They really struggle to do photography within, a sort of hour or two from their home. But the truth is there's photographic opportunities everywhere. And of course I know I'm very fortunate to live in a beautiful part of the world, but there really is photographic opportunities everywhere. And if you can try and get out there and keep your photography up in between these periods when you can't travel by photographing locally, I think it makes you a much better photographer, because you're forced to adapt and think outside the box. And if you can learn to have a deep connection with where you live, as I do in the area that I come from, and go back to these locations time and time again, you develop this really deep, meaningful connection with that place, and it allows you to really experiment with your own creativity. And I just think I love that. And I've spoken vocally about this in the past, about how I actually much prefer photographing locally than going to some of the more iconic Scottish locations on the west coast, because they just don't inspire me the same, but I've got this very close connection with my local coastline, and I want to share that with everybody. And for my own personal creativity, I want to keep connecting with that and get that connection deeper and deeper, and then share it with other people through teaching and workshops and YouTube, of course. Just thinking there when I was editing that photography is all about finding out what works for you. So some people, travelling is what ignites their passion, it's what fuels their drive to do photography. But I find there's a lot of people out there who feel they have to travel, not because they feel it inside like they have to travel, but because there's this almost mindset in photography about going to these epic, iconic locations. But one thing I want to speak about more moving forward is finding your voice as a creative person, whether that's photography or any other creative endeavour that you do. The best way to feel fulfilled in your own creativity is to listen to what's driving you. Listen to your heart. Listen to where you're being pulled to and what inspires you. And for me, it's the coast, and it's from where I was brought up. But for other people, it could be, other locations, or the thrill of travelling, or the thrill of going to new places. So yeah, just think about what is it in life that you enjoy, what drives you to get out doing photography, and try and do more of that. But if you do go back to the same locations time and time again, especially if you're a beginner, it's great for learning, because it teaches you the importance of lights and composition and getting to know your locations and planning and stuff like that. But if you're a photographer that's been doing it for many, many years, and you're very comfortable with your gear and your photographic abilities, it gives you that connection. So yeah, listen to your heart and listen to what inspires you, and get out there and enjoy it. That's what photography is about, isn't it? Yeah, but don't rule out going back to the same place more than once, because it does teach you a lot, I would say. A lot. So that's that. Just a reminder again, any of those events that interested you that I spoke about at the start of the video, you can find out in the description box below. And as always, I want to say a huge thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you all again next time.